1. Research methodology. An introduction. Meaning of research. Research in common parlance refers to a search for knowledge. One can also define research as a scientific and systematic search for pertinent information on a specific topic. In fact, research is an art of scientific investigation. The Advanced Learner's Dictionary of Current English lays down the meaning of research as a careful investigation or inquiry, specially through search for new facts in any branch of knowledge. 1. Redman and Mori define research as a systematized effort to gain new knowledge. To some people consider research as a movement from the known to the unknown. It is actually a voyage of discovery. We all possess the vital instinct of inquisitiveness, for when the unknown confronts us, we wonder, and our inquisitiveness makes us probe and attain full and fuller understanding of the unknown. This inquisitiveness is the mother of all knowledge and the method which man employs for obtaining the knowledge of whatever the unknown can be termed as research. Research is an academic activity, and as such the term should be used in a technical sense. According to Clifford Woody, research comprises defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing and evaluating data, making deductions and reaching conclusions, and at last carefully testing the conclusions to determine whether they fit the formulating hypothesis. D. Schlesinger and M. Stephenson in the Encyclopedia of Social Sciences define research as the manipulation of things, concepts or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to extend, correct or verify knowledge, whether that knowledge aids in construction of theory or in the practice of an art. 3. Research is, thus, an original contribution to the existing stock of knowledge making for its advancement. It is the pursuit of truth with the help of study, observation, comparison and experiment. In short, the search for knowledge through objective and systematic method of finding solution to a problem is research. The systematic approach concerning generalization and the formulation of a theory is also research. As such, the term research refers to the systematic method consisting of enunciating the problem, formulating a hypothesis, collecting the facts or data, analyzing the facts and reaching certain conclusions either in the form of solutions towards the concerned problem or in certain generalizations for some theoretical formulation. Objectives of research. The purpose of research is to discover answers to questions through the application of scientific procedures. The main aim of research is to find out the truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered as yet. Though each research study has its own specific purpose, we may think of research objectives as falling into a number of following broad groupings. 1. To gain familiarity with a phenomenon or to achieve new insights into it. Studies with this object in view are termed as exploratory or formulative research studies. 2. To portray accurately the characteristics of a particular individual, situation or a group. Studies with this object in view are known as descriptive research studies. 3. To determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which it is associated with something else, studies with this object in view are known as diagnostic research studies. 4. To test a hypothesis of a causal relationship between variables, such studies are known as hypothesis testing research studies. Motivation in research. What makes people to undertake research? This is a question of fundamental importance. The possible motives for doing research may be either one or more of the following. 1. Desire to get a research degree along with its consequential benefits. 2. Desire to face the challenge in solving the unsolved problems, i.e., concern over practical problems initiates research. 3. Desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work. 4. Desire to be of service to society. 5. Desire to get respectability. However, this is not an exhaustive list of factors motivating people to undertake research studies. Many more factors such as directives of government, employment conditions, curiosity about new things, desire to understand causal relationships, social thinking and awakening, and the like may as well motivate, or at times compel, people to perform research operations. Types of research. The basic types of research are as follows. I. Descriptive versus analytical. Descriptive research includes surveys and fact-finding inquiries of different kinds. The major purpose of descriptive research is description of the state of affairs as it exists at present. In social science and business research, we quite often use the term ex post facto research for descriptive research studies. The main characteristic of this method is that the researcher has no control over the variables, he can only report what has happened or what is happening. Most ex post facto research projects are used for descriptive studies in which the researcher seeks to measure such items as, for example, frequency of shopping, preferences of people, or similar data. Ex post facto studies also include attempts by researchers to discover causes even when they cannot control the variables. The methods of research utilized in descriptive research are survey methods of all kinds, including comparative and correlational methods. In analytical research, on the other hand, the researcher has to use facts or information already available and analyze these to make a critical evaluation of the material. 2. Applied versus fundamental. Research can either be applied or action research or fundamental to basic or pure research. Applied research aims at finding a solution for an immediate problem facing a society or an industrial business organization, whereas fundamental research is mainly concerned with generalizations and with the formulation of a theory. Gathering knowledge for knowledge's sake is termed pure or basic research. 4. Research concerning some natural phenomenon or relating to pure mathematics are examples of fundamental research. Similarly, research studies concerning human behavior carried on with a view to make generalizations about human behavior are also examples of fundamental research, but research aimed at certain conclusions, say, a solution facing a concrete social or business problem is an example of applied research. Research to identify social, economic or political trends that may affect a particular institution or the copy research to find out whether certain communications will be read and understood, or the marketing research or evaluation research are examples of applied research. Thus, the central aim of applied research is to discover a solution for some pressing practical problem, whereas basic research is directed towards finding information that has a broad base of applications and thus adds to the already existing organized body of scientific knowledge. 3. Quantitative versus qualitative. Quantitative research is based on the measurement of quantity or amount. It is applicable to phenomena that can be expressed in terms of quantity. Qualitative research, on the other hand, is concerned with qualitative phenomenon, i.e., phenomena relating to or involving quality or kind. For instance, when we are interested in investigating the reasons for human behavior, i.e., why people think or do certain things, we quite often talk of motivation research, an important type of qualitative research. This type of research aims at discovering the underlying motives and desires using in-depth interviews for the purpose. Other techniques of such research are word association tests, sentence completion tests, story completion tests, and similar other projective techniques. Attitude or opinion research, i.e., research designed to find out how people feel or what they think about a particular subject or institution, is also. Qualitative research. Qualitative research is especially important in the behavioral sciences, where the aim is to discover the underlying motives of human behavior. Through such research, we can analyze the various factors which motivate people to behave in a particular manner or which make people like or dislike a particular thing. It may be stated, however, that to apply qualitative research in practice is relatively a difficult job, and therefore, while doing such research, one should seek guidance from experimental psychologists. 4. Conceptual versus empirical. Conceptual research is that related to some abstract ideas or theory. It is generally used by philosophers and thinkers to develop new concepts or to 4. Reinterpret existing ones. On the other hand, empirical research relies on experience or observation alone, often without due regard for system and theory. It is data-based research, coming up with conclusions which are capable of being verified by observation or experiment. We can also call it as experimental type of research. In such a research, it is necessary to get at facts firsthand, at their source, and actively to go about doing certain things to stimulate the production of desired information. In such a research, the researcher must first provide himself with a working hypothesis or guess as to the probable results. He then works to get enough facts, data, to prove or disprove his hypothesis. He then sets up experimental designs which he thinks will manipulate the persons or the materials concerned so as to bring forth the desired information. Such research is thus characterized by the experimenter's control over the variables under study and his deliberate manipulation of one of them to study its effects. Empirical research is appropriate when proof is sought that certain variables affect other variables in some way. Evidence gathered through experiments or empirical studies is today considered to be the most powerful support possible for a given hypothesis. Some other types of research. All other types of research are variations of one or more of the above stated approaches based on either the purpose of research or the time required to accomplish research, on the environment in which research is done, or on the basis of some other similar factor. From the point of view of time, we can think of research either as one-time research or longitudinal research. In the former case, the research is confined to a single time period, whereas in the latter case, the research is carried on over several time periods. Research can be field-setting research or laboratory research or simulation research, depending upon the environment in which it is to be carried out. Research can as well be understood as clinical or diagnostic research. Such research follow case study methods or in-depth approaches to reach the basic causal relations. Such studies usually go deep into the causes of things or events that interest us. Using very small samples and very deep probing data gathering devices. The research may be exploratory or it may be formalized. The objective of exploratory research is the development of hypotheses rather than their testing, whereas formalized research studies are those with substantial structure and with specific hypotheses to be tested. Historical research is that which utilizes historical sources like documents, remains, etc. to study events or ideas of the past, including the philosophy of persons and groups at any remote point of time. Research can also be classified as conclusion-oriented and decision-oriented. While doing conclusion-oriented research, a researcher is free to pick up a problem, redesign the inquiry as he proceeds, and is prepared to conceptualize as he wishes. Decision-oriented research is always for the need of a decision maker, and the researcher in this case is not free to embark upon research according to his own inclination. Operations research is an example of decision-oriented research since it is a scientific method of providing executive departments with a quantitative basis for decisions regarding operations under their control. Research approaches. The above description of the types of research brings to light the fact that there are two basic approaches to research, viz., quantitative approach and the qualitative approach. The former involves the generation of data in quantitative form which can be subjected to rigorous quantitative analysis in a formal and rigid fashion. This approach can be further subclassified into inferential, experimental and simulation approaches to research. The purpose of inferential approach to research is to form a database from which to infer characteristics or relationships of population. This usually means survey research where a sample of population is studied, questioned or observed to determine its characteristics, and it is then inferred that the population has the same characteristics. Experimental approach is characterized by much greater control over the research environment, and in this case some variables are manipulated to observe their effect on other variables. Simulation approach involves the construction of an artificial environment within which relevant information and data can be generated. This permits an observation of the dynamic behavior of a system or its subsystem under controlled conditions. The term simulation in the context of business and social sciences applications refers to the operation of a numerical model that represents the structure of a dynamic process. Given the values of initial conditions, parameters, and exogenous variables, a simulation is run to represent the behavior of the process over time. 5. Simulation approach can also be useful in building models for understanding future conditions. Qualitative approach to research is concerned with subjective assessment of attitudes, opinions, and behavior. Research in such a situation is a function of researchers' insights and impressions. Such an approach to research generates results either in non-quantitative form or in the form which are not subjected to rigorous quantitative analysis. Generally, the techniques of focus group interviews, projective techniques and depth interviews are used. All these are explained at length in chapters that follow. Significance of research. All progress is born of inquiry. Doubt is often better than overconfidence, for it leads to inquiry, and inquiry leads to invention is a famous Hudson maxim in context of which the significance of research can well be understood. Increased amounts of research make progress possible. Research inculcates scientific and inductive thinking, and it promotes the development of logical habits of thinking and organization. The role of research in several fields of applied economics, whether related to business or to the economy as a whole, has greatly increased in modern times. The increasingly complex nature of business and government has focused attention on the use of research in solving operational problems. Research, as an aid to economic policy, has gained added importance both for government and business. Research provides the basis for nearly all government policies in our economic system. For instance, government's budgets rest in part on an analysis of the needs and desires of the people, and on the availability of revenues to meet these needs. The cost of needs has to be equated to probable revenues, and this is a field where research is most needed. Through research, we can devise alternative policies and can as well examine the consequences of each of these alternatives. Decision-making may not be a part of research, but research certainly facilitates the decisions of the policy maker. Government has also to chalk out programs for dealing with all facets of the country's existence, and most of these will be related directly or indirectly to economic conditions. The plight of cultivators, the problems of big and small business and industry, working conditions, trade union activities, the problems of distribution, even the size and nature of defense services are matters requiring research. Thus, research is considered necessary with regard to the allocation of nation's resources. Another area in government where research is necessary is collecting information on the economic and social structure of the nation. Such information indicates what is happening in the economy and what changes are taking place. Collecting such statistical information is by no means a routine task, but it involves a variety of research problems. These days, nearly all governments maintain large staff of research technicians or experts to carry on this work. Thus, in the context of government, research as a tool to economic policy has three distinct phases of operation, viz. I. Investigation of economic structure through continual compilation of facts. 2. Diagnosis of events that are taking place and the analysis of the forces underlying them. And 3. The prognosis, i.e., the prediction of future developments. Research has its special significance in solving various operational and planning problems of business and industry. Operations research and market research, along with motivational research, are considered crucial, and their results assist, in more than one way, in taking business decisions. Market research is the investigation of the structure and development of a market for the purpose of formulating efficient policies for purchasing, production and sales. Operations research refers to the application of mathematical, logical and analytical techniques to the solution of business problems of cost minimization or of profit maximization, or what can be termed as optimization problems. Motivational research of determining why people behave as they do is mainly concerned with market characteristics. In other words, it is concerned with the determination of motivations underlying the consumer market behavior. All these are of great help to people in business and industry who are responsible for taking business decisions. Research with regard to demand and market factors has great utility in business. Given knowledge of future demand, it is generally not difficult for a firm or for an industry to adjust its supply schedule within the limits of its projected capacity. market analysis has become an integral tool of business policy these days. Business budgeting, which ultimately results in a projected profit and loss account, is based mainly on sales estimates, which in turn depends on business research. Once sales forecasting is done, efficient production and investment programs can be set up around which are grouped the purchasing and financing plans. Research, thus, replaces intuitive business decisions by more logical and scientific decisions. Research is equally important for social scientists in studying social relationships and in seeking answers to various social problems. It provides the intellectual satisfaction of knowing a few things just for the sake of knowledge, and also has practical utility for the social scientist to know for the sake of being able to do something better or in a more efficient manner. Research in social sciences is concerned both with knowledge for its own sake and with knowledge for what it can contribute to practical concerns. This double emphasis is perhaps especially appropriate in the case of social science. On the one hand, its responsibility as a science is to develop a body of principles that make possible the understanding and prediction of the whole range of human interactions. On the other hand, because of its social orientation, it is increasingly being looked to for practical guidance in solving immediate problems of human relations. 6. In addition to what has been stated above, the significance of research can also be understood keeping in view the following points. A. To those students who are to write a master's or PhD thesis, research may mean a careerism or a way to attain a high position in the social structure. B. To professionals in research methodology, research may mean a source of livelihood. C. To philosophers and thinkers, research may mean the outlet for new ideas and insights. D. To literary men and women, research may mean the development of new styles and creative work. E. To analysts and intellectuals, research may mean the generalizations of new theories. Thus, research is the fountain of knowledge for the sake of knowledge, and an important source of providing guidelines for solving different business, governmental and social problems. It is a sort of formal training which enables one to understand the new developments in one's field in a better way. Research methods versus methodology. It seems appropriate at this juncture to explain the difference between research methods and research methodology. Research methods may be understood as all those methods, techniques that are used for conduction of research. Research methods or techniques asterisk, thus, refer to the methods the researchers asterisk. At times, a distinction is also made between research techniques and research methods. Research techniques refer to the behavior and instruments we use in performing research operations, such as making observations, recording data, techniques of processing data, and the like. Research methods refer to the behavior and instruments used in selecting and constructing research technique. For instance, the difference between methods and techniques of data collection can better be understood from the details given in the following chart. Type methods, techniques. 1. Library. I. Analysis of historical recording of notes, content analysis, tape and film listening and research records analysis. 2. Analysis of documents, statistical compilations and manipulations, reference and abstract guides, contents analysis. 2. Field I. Non-participant direct observational behavioral scales, use of scorecards, etc. Research observation. 2. Participant observation interactional recording, possible use of tape recorders, photographic techniques. 3. Mass observation recording mass behavior, interview using independent observers in public places. 4. Mail questionnaire identification of social and economic background of respondents. Opinionaire use of attitude scales, projective techniques, use of sociometric scales. 6. Personal interview interviewer uses a detailed schedule with open and closed questions. 7. Focused interview interviewer focuses attention upon a given experience and its effects. 8. Group interview small groups of respondents are interviewed simultaneously. 9. Telephone survey used as a survey technique for information and for discerning opinion may also be used as a follow-up of questionnaire. KISS Smiley case study and life history cross-sectional collection of data for intensive analysis, longitudinal collection of data of intensive character. 3. Laboratory small group study of random research behavior, play and role analysis use of audiovisual recording devices, use of observers, etc. From what has been stated above, we can say that methods are more general. It is the methods that generate techniques. However, in practice, the two terms are taken as interchangeable, and when we talk of research methods we do, by implication, include research techniques within their compass. Use in performing research operations. In other words, all those methods which are used by the researcher during the course of studying his research problem are termed as research methods. Since the object of research, particularly the applied research, is to arrive at a solution for a given problem, the available data and the unknown aspects of the problem have to be related to each other to make a solution possible. Keeping this in view, research methods can be put into the following three groups. 1. In the first group we include those methods which are concerned with the collection of data. These methods will be used where the data already available are not sufficient to arrive at the required solution. 2. The second group consists of those statistical techniques which are used for establishing relationships between the data and the unknowns. 3. The third group consists of those methods which are used to evaluate the accuracy of the results obtained. Research methods falling in the above stated last two groups are generally taken as the analytical tools of research. Research methodology is a way to systematically solve the research problem. It may be understood as a science of studying how research is done scientifically. In it we study the various steps that are generally adopted by a researcher in studying his research problem along with the logic behind them. It is necessary for the researcher to know not only the research methods, techniques, but also the methodology. Researchers not only need to know how to develop certain indices or tests, how to calculate the mean, the mode, the median or the standard deviation or chi-square, how to apply particular research techniques, but they also need to know which of these methods or techniques are relevant and which are not, and what would they mean and indicate and why. Researchers also need to understand the assumptions underlying various techniques, and they need to know the criteria by which they can decide that certain techniques and procedures will be applicable to certain problems and others will not. All this means that it is necessary for the researcher to design his methodology for his problem, as the same may differ from problem to problem. For example, an architect who designs a building has to consciously evaluate the basis of his decisions, i.e., he has to evaluate why and on what basis he selects particular size, number and location of doors, windows and ventilators, uses particular materials and not others, and the like. Similarly, in research, the scientist has to expose the research decisions to evaluation before they are implemented. He has to specify very clearly and precisely what decisions he selects and why he selects them so that they can be evaluated by others also. From what has been stated above, we can say that research methodology has many dimensions and research methods do constitute a part of the research methodology. The scope of research methodology is wider than that of research methods. Thus, when we talk of research methodology, we not only talk of the research methods but also consider the logic behind the methods we use in the context of our research study and explain why we are using a particular method or technique and why we are not using others, so that research results are capable of being evaluated either by the researcher himself or by others. Why a research study has been undertaken, how the research problem has been defined, in what way and why the hypothesis has been formulated, what data have been collected and what particular method has been adopted, why particular technique of analyzing data has been used, and a host of similar other questions are usually answered when we talk of research methodology concerning a research problem or study. Research and scientific method. For a clear perception of the term research, one should know the meaning of scientific method. The two terms, research and scientific method, are closely related. Research, as we have already stated, can be termed as an inquiry into the nature of, the reasons for, and the consequences of any particular set of circumstances, whether these circumstances are experimentally controlled or recorded just as they occur. Further, research implies the researcher is interested in more than particular results. He is interested in the repeatability of the results and in their extension to more complicated and general situations. 7. On the other hand, the philosophy common to all research methods and techniques, although they may vary considerably from one science to another, is usually given the name of scientific method. In this context, Carl Pearson writes, "The scientific method is one and same in the branches of science, and that method is the method of all logically trained minds. The unity of all sciences consists alone in its methods, not its material, the man who classifies facts of any kind whatever, who sees their mutual relation and describes their sequences, is applying the scientific method and is a man of science." 8. Scientific method is the pursuit of truth as determined by logical considerations. The ideal of science is to achieve a systematic interrelation of facts. Scientific method attempts to achieve this ideal by experimentation, observation, logical arguments from accepted postulates and a combination of these three in varying proportions. 8. In scientific method, logic aids in formulating propositions explicitly and accurately so that their possible alternatives become clear. Further, logic develops the consequences of such alternatives, and when these are compared with observable phenomena, it becomes possible for the researcher or the scientist to state which alternative is most in harmony with the observed facts. All this is done through experimentation and survey investigations which constitute the integral parts of scientific method. Experimentation is done to test hypotheses and to discover new relationships, if any, among variables. But the conclusions drawn on the basis of experimental data are generally criticized for either faulty assumptions, poorly designed experiments, badly executed experiments, or faulty interpretations. As such, the researcher must pay all possible attention while developing the experimental design and must state only probable inferences. The purpose of survey investigations may also be to provide scientifically gathered information to work as a basis for the researchers for their conclusions. The scientific method is, thus, based on certain basic postulates which can be stated as under. 1. It relies on empirical evidence. 2. It utilizes relevant concepts. 3. It is committed to only objective considerations. 4. It presupposes ethical neutrality, i.e., it aims at nothing but making only adequate and correct statements about population objects. 5. It results into probabilistic predictions. 6. Its methodology is made known to all concerned for critical scrutiny or for use in testing the conclusions through replication. 7. It aims at formulating most general axioms or what can be termed as scientific theories. Thus, the scientific method encourages a rigorous, impersonal mode of procedure dictated by the demands of logic and objective procedure. 9. Accordingly, scientific method implies an objective, logical and systematic method, i.e., a method free from personal bias or prejudice, a method to ascertain demonstrable qualities of a phenomenon capable of being verified, a method wherein the researcher is guided by the rules of logical reasoning, a method wherein the investigation proceeds in an orderly manner, and a method that implies internal consistency. Importance of knowing how research is done. The study of research methodology gives the student the necessary training in gathering material and arranging or card indexing them, participation in the field work when required, and also training in techniques for the collection of data appropriate to particular problems, in the use of statistics, questionnaires and controlled experimentation, and in recording evidence, sorting it out and interpreting it. In fact, importance of knowing the methodology of research or how research is done stems from the following considerations. For one who is preparing himself for a career of carrying out research, the importance of knowing research methodology and research techniques is obvious since the same constitute the tools of his trade. The knowledge of methodology provides good training specially to the new research worker and enables him to do better research. It helps him to develop disciplined thinking or a bent of mind to observe the field objectively. Hence, those aspiring for careerism in research must develop the skill of using research techniques and must thoroughly understand the logic behind them. 2. Knowledge of how to do research will inculcate the ability to evaluate and use research results with reasonable confidence. In other words, we can state that the knowledge of research methodology is helpful in various fields such as government or business administration, community development and social work where persons are increasingly called upon to evaluate and use research results for action. 3. When one knows how research is done, then one may have the satisfaction of acquiring a new intellectual tool which can become a way of looking at the world and of judging everyday experience. Accordingly, it enables use to make intelligent decisions concerning problems facing us in practical life at different points of time. Thus, the knowledge of research methodology provides tools to look at things in life objectively. 4. In this scientific age, all of us are in many ways consumers of research results, and we can use them intelligently provided we are able to judge the adequacy of the methods by which they have been obtained. The knowledge of methodology helps the consumer of research results to evaluate them and enables him to take rational decisions. Research process. Before embarking on the details of research methodology and techniques, it seems appropriate to present a brief overview of the research process. Research process consists of series of actions or steps necessary to effectively carry out research and the desired sequencing of these steps. The chart shown in figure 1.1 well illustrates a research process. Review concepts and theories. Review previous research finding. Formulate hypotheses. Design research, including sample design. Collect data, execution. Analyze data, test hypotheses if any, F. Review the literature. 2. 3, 4, V, 6, 7. Interpret and report. Define research problem I. FF. F. FF. FF. Where is equal to feedback helps in controlling the sub-F system to which it is transmitted, is equal to feed forward, serves the vital function of providing criteria for evaluation. Research process in flow chart. The chart indicates that the research process consists of a number of closely related activities, as shown through I to 7. But such activities overlap continuously rather than following a strictly prescribed sequence. At times, the first step determines the nature of the last step to be undertaken. If subsequent procedures have not been taken into account in the early stages, serious difficulties may arise which may even prevent the completion of the study. One should remember that the various steps involved in a research process are not mutually exclusive, nor they are separate and distinct. They do not necessarily follow each other in any specific order, and the researcher has to be constantly anticipating at each step in the research process the requirements of the subsequent steps. However, the following order concerning various steps provides a useful procedural guideline regarding the research process. 1. Formulating the research problem. 2. Extensive. Literature survey. 3. Developing the hypothesis. 4. Preparing the research design. 5. Determining sample design. 6. Collecting the data. 7. Execution of the project. 8. Analysis of data. 9. Hypothesis testing. 10. Generalizations and interpretation. And 11. Preparation of the report or presentation of the results, i.e., formal write-up of conclusions reached. A brief description of the above stated steps will be helpful. 1. Formulating the research problem. There are two types of research problems, viz., those which relate to states of nature and those which relate to relationships between variables. At the very outset, the researcher must single out the problem he wants to study, i.e., he must decide the general area of interest or aspect of a subject matter that he would like to inquire into. Initially, the problem may be stated in a broad general way, and then the ambiguities, if any, relating to the problem be resolved. Then, the feasibility of a particular solution has to be considered before a working formulation of the problem can be set up. The formulation of a general topic into a specific research problem, thus, constitutes the first step in a scientific inquiry. Essentially, two steps are involved in formulating the research problem, viz., understanding the problem thoroughly and rephrasing the same into meaningful terms from an analytical point of view. The best way of understanding the problem is to discuss it with one's own colleagues or with those having some expertise in the matter. In an academic institution, the researcher can seek the help from a guide who is usually an experienced man and has several research problems in mind. Often, the guide puts forth the problem in general terms, and it is up to the researcher to narrow it down and phrase the problem in operational terms. In private business units or in governmental organizations, the problem is usually earmarked by the administrative agencies with whom the researcher can discuss as to how the problem originally came about and what considerations are involved in its possible solutions. The researcher must at the same time examine all available literature to get himself acquainted with the selected problem. He may review two types of literature: the conceptual literature concerning the concepts and theories, and the empirical literature consisting of studies made earlier, which are similar to the one proposed. The basic outcome of this review will be the knowledge as to what data and other materials are available for operational purposes, which will enable the researcher to specify his own research problem in a meaningful context. After this, the researcher rephrases the problem into analytical or operational terms, i.e., to put the problem in as specific terms as possible. This task of formulating or defining a research problem is a step of greatest importance in the entire research process. The problem to be investigated must be defined unambiguously, for that will help discriminating relevant data from irrelevant ones. Care must, however, be taken to verify the objectivity and validity of the background facts concerning the problem. Professor W. A. Neiswanger correctly states that the statement of the objective is of basic importance because it determines the data which are to be collected, the characteristics of the data which are relevant, relations which are to be explored, the choice of techniques to be used in these explorations, and the form of the final report. If there are certain pertinent terms, the same should be clearly defined along with the task of formulating the problem. In fact, formulation of the problem often follows a sequential pattern where a number of formulations are set up, each formulation more specific than the preceding one, each one phrased in more analytical terms, and each more realistic in terms of the available data and resources. 2. Extensive literature survey. Once the problem is formulated, a brief summary of it should be written down. It is compulsory for a research worker writing a thesis for a PhD degree to write a synopsis of the topic and submit it to the necessary committee or the research board for approval. At this juncture, the researcher should undertake extensive literature survey connected with the problem. For this purpose, the abstracting and indexing journals and published or unpublished bibliographies are the first place to go to. Academic journals, conference proceedings, government reports, books, etc. must be tapped depending on the nature of the problem. In this process, it should be remembered that one source will lead to another. The earlier studies, if any, which are similar to the study in hand should be carefully studied. A good library will be a great help to the researcher at this stage. 3. Development of working hypotheses. After extensive literature survey, researcher should state in clear terms the working hypothesis or hypotheses. Working hypothesis is tentative assumption made in order to draw out and test its logical or empirical consequences. As such, the manner in which research hypotheses are developed is particularly important since they provide the focal point for research. They also affect the manner in which tests must be conducted in the analysis of data and indirectly the quality of data which is required for the analysis. In most types of research, the development of working hypothesis plays an important role. Hypothesis should be very specific and limited to the piece of research in hand because it has to be tested. The role of the hypothesis is to guide the researcher by delimiting the area of research and to keep him on the right track. It sharpens his thinking and focuses attention on the more important facets of the problem. It also indicates the type of data required and the type of methods of data analysis to be used. How does one go about developing working hypotheses? The answer is by using the following approach. A. Discussions with colleagues and experts about the problem, its origin, and the objectives in seeking a solution. B. Examination of data and records, if available, concerning the problem for possible trends, peculiarities, and other clues. C. Review of similar studies in the area or of the studies on similar problems, and D. Exploratory personal investigation, which involves original field interviews on a limited scale with interested parties and individuals with a view to secure greater insight into the practical aspects of the problem. Thus, working hypotheses arise as a result of a priori thinking about the subject, examination of the available data and material including related studies, and the counsel of experts and interested parties. Working hypotheses are more useful when stated in precise and clearly defined terms. It may as well be remembered that occasionally we may encounter a problem where we do not need working hypotheses, especially in the case of exploratory or formulative researches which do not aim at testing the hypothesis. But as a general rule, specification of working hypotheses is another basic step of the research process in most research problems. 1. And inter-university and interdepartmental rivalries are also quite common. Hence, there is need for developing a code of conduct for researchers which, if adhered sincerely, can win over this problem. Too many researchers in our country also face the difficulty of adequate and timely secretarial assistance, including computerial assistance. This causes unnecessary delays in the completion of research studies. All possible efforts be made in this direction so that efficient secretarial assistance is made available to researchers and that too well in time. University Grants Commission must play a dynamic role in solving this difficulty. 3. Library management and functioning is not satisfactory at many places and much of the time and energy of researchers are spent in tracing out the books, journals, reports, etc., rather than in tracing out relevant material from them. 4. There is also the problem that many of our libraries are not able to get copies of old and new acts, rules, reports and other government publications in time. This problem is felt more in libraries which are away in places from Delhi and or the state capitals. Thus, efforts should be made for the regular and speedy supply of all governmental publications to reach our libraries. 5. There is also the difficulty of timely availability of published data from various government and other agencies doing this job in our country. Researcher also faces the problem on account of the fact that the published data vary quite significantly because of differences in coverage by the concerning agencies. Concerning agencies. 6. There may, at times, take place the problem of conceptualization and also problems relating to the process of data collection and related things.